The Hudson Valley Bike Tour in 2023 is sponsored by the good folks over at Bike New York. Now, I've done the Hudson Valley Bike Tour a couple times in the past. The first time with my brother, shout out to David, Spun today alum, as well as with my friend Pablo, shout out to Pablo, also Spun today alum. It was actually the very first bike tour marathon that I ever got involved in, that I ever did. And I think I've told the story here in the podcast, but just a quick recap of that one. I think it was back in 2012, I want to say, maybe 2013, but I think 2012. And I just got my bike. I wanted to get into riding. I went out to train with my brother and Pablo, who were already into cycling. A couple of times I went out with them, but I didn't take it seriously. At the time, I was dating my girlfriend, now wife, Zoila. At the time, I was dating my girlfriend and now wife, Zoila. Shout out to Zoila, also Spontané alum. And we were actually in a long distance relationship. I lived in New York and she was living in Massachusetts at the time. So what we would do is every weekend we would alternate. Either she would come down to New York or I would go up to Massachusetts. The weekends is when David and Pablo would go training for this Hudson Valley bike tour that we signed up for. So I did happen to go with them a couple times, literally probably like twice, but didn't do much training at all and spent the time instead chilling with my girl. I figured I would just, will myself through it. Will myself through the marathon, which we signed up for the 55-mile version of the tour. Long story short, my brother and Pablo finished hours before me. In the middle of, or at least when I was in the middle of the tour, we all got alerts on our phones of a monsoon or tornado warning or some shit like that in the area. And it just started pouring rain. So literally for 15, 20 miles plus, it was just pouring rain nonstop. So I had to deal with that, plus the fact that, again, I was completely out of cycling shape and hours behind everyone else. By the time I finished, which I actually did finish, the folks at Bike New York, which again, sponsor and put together these events, they were breaking down the Finish Line Festival, which lasts, again, hours after the entire race is completed and is filled with food and booze and music and stuff like that for people to just wind down and chill after the race. They were literally breaking everything down, like the tents and food stations and all that, by the time I finally crossed the finish line. So that's my experience with the very first Hudson Valley tour that I did. Then I did it once after that, I think 2019-ish. I think it was the last tour I did before the pandemic, where we took a few years off. And I did that one with Pablo, went a lot smoother. We actually signed up for the 30-mile one, which leads me to 2023. So the way it works is that you have the option to sign up for one of four paths, if you will, or course lengths, rather. You can sign up for a 15-mile run, a 30-mile run, a 55-mile run, or a 100-mile run. And I think there's a 75-mile run option, actually, or I might be misremembering that. I think it's 15, 30, 55, and 100. The Century Mile Run, which will never see me on it. So 2019, we did the 30-mile. This year in 2023, we signed up for the same. And if you guys remember, I signed up for the 5-borough last year. And when we were literally about to head to the event, I realized both my tires were completely flat for some reason. And they just wouldn't take air no matter what we did. And instead of, going all the way there, hoping that there were, like an open bike shop or that they could fix my issue, we bitched out and didn't do the 5-borough. Similarly, for this latest Hudson Valley 2023 tour, I checked my bike the night before and I had a flat tire. I was like, what the fuck? I had just the weekend before, picked it up from getting a full tune-up, so the bike should be in as pristine condition as possible. So I checked my bike the night before, see that it has a flat in the bike room of my building. It has one of those electric air pumps for all the bikes. I fill it up. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Good thing I checked. So tomorrow I just got to wake up, grab my bike and bounce. The next morning, flat tire again. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm literally thinking someone in my building's fucking with me or something. I'm thinking my tire. What is going on? I fill it up again, take my bike, load it up to the bike racks. We head out to Hudson Valley. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from us. We get there, park the car, grab my bike, flat tire again. What the fuck? And we're already there. I'm like, fuck it, let's just walk over there and see if there's a bike fixing station. Thankfully, and again, shout out to the good folks at Bike New York and Trek, which actually had a bike fixing station set up there. And there were a few people online, waited my turn, and basically they replaced the tube of the tire. They said the tube was actually fine. They found some shards within the rim itself, which seemed to be, every time I would fill it up, it would stay full. But once I would park the bike and let it sit for a while, those little shards would empty the air very, very slowly, which was the other interesting thing, because this continually kept happening, but only after I would park the bike. I could ride the bike, fill it up with air, ride the bike for 10, 15, 20 miles, while we were training, and it would be fine. But then after I parked the bike, the next day it would be empty. So it was only when it sat. So I was good for the race, for the marathon rather, and we got going. It was a nice run. It was super hot. Hudson Valley is very hilly, which while I was doing it reminded me why I had this false memory of I liked it more than doing the 5-borough. Although the 5-borough is dope because it's like you get to ride through all 5 boroughs, streets, tunnels, bridges that are all close to traffic. So you get to see different parts of the city in that way. But then you have to cross the Verrazano Bridge at the end, which is a bitch. Such a long, steep incline. And the Hudson Valley is different in that, one, it's not close to traffic. So you are in streets and stuff like that with traffic, but it's Hudson Valley. It's not as populated as New York City, for example. And it's very scenic, a lot of greenery. You do cross a bridge, at least one. You ride through a park for a long length of it, but you're also in streets and it's very hilly. You have a lot of hills, a lot of ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. Not as long as, for example, the Verrazano Bridge, but there's just so many of them. So while I was doing that, I was reminded of not liking Hudson Valley. Then, so remember, I signed up for the 30-mile one this time again. I'm at around mile 25, maybe 26-ish. Having a tough time, tired. I had trained for it, but just tired, fucking dealing with all the hills. It's super hot and humid, but I'm close to the end, right? It's like 25, 26 miles in, and then my fucking quad tightens up on both my legs at first. So then I have to get off the bike. It has happened to me before. So if it hasn't happened to you before, I'll try to describe it. It's picture the way your knees lock or like your elbows lock. You stretch them out and you just lock them in place. Picture your quad, the muscle on your quad, right? So your thighs, the top of your thighs. Picture those locking and tightening up, which then makes your leg straighten out and you can't bend it because it's locked in place, your quad. So then I have to get off the bike and literally with my hands rubbing the muscle, just rubbing it, punching it, trying to get it to unlock. Like, yo, let's go. What the fuck? Such a weird, uncomfortable feeling. And it happens from muscle exhaustion. Usually though, after, you could walk it off, you could, rub it out. And you see people while you're riding, going through this same thing. They pull over to the sides, take a breather. It happened to me actually my first time doing the Hudson Valley in that 55-mile run. It happened to me multiple times. And it was scary because I didn't know what the fuck it was. This time I knew what it was, but I was just so done. I had thought about quitting like 10 miles before. And just dealing with hill after hill after hill, up and down, up and down, up and down. And no excuses. I completely bitched out. I'm 3 to 4 miles away from the finish line. My quad's tightened up. It's not loosening. I tried for a while, not loosening up, so I physically couldn't ride. And I wound up calling in reinforcements. Shout out again to the good folks at Bike New York. They do give you the option if you get hurt, if you get sick or anything like that, you can call the coordinators of the event and they'll send a van or something to pick you up and take you the rest of the way, which ultimately is what I wound up doing. And it's after I made the call, I had to wait probably 10 minutes or so after making the call, 10, 15 minutes. So I'm there, I'm still rubbing it out. It started to feel better. I'm like, fuck, I think I can make it now. But I had already called them. And, some people riding by, and the cycling community is pretty cool in that they look out for each other. Everybody that passed by were like, "Yo, you okay? You good? You need anything?" And giving words of encouragement to each other. One dude passed by. He was like, "The end's got to be near, bro. We're close by. I think it's just over that one more hill, and that's it. The rest is like downhill from here." but I had already bitched out. I had called, the car was on the way, and I even texted with the person. They told me to text them my location. I told them, should I like bike a little bit and then let them know where I'm at when they get closer? Should I try to go a little bit more? And they said, no, just stay where you're at, because that's the direction that we gave them. So yeah, I did that. Stood in place. If I had signed up for the 15-mile one, I would have been, done with the tour, 10 miles before, 11 miles before, which is, again, not an excuse, but yeah. They picked me up, drove me the other, 3 or 4 miles to the end. I cycled down to the Finish Festival, and there, you get to listen to live music, grab a beer, get some food, you get your finishing medal, which again, had I signed up for the 15-mile one and bitched out before the 15 miles, I would feel bad about having. But if folks get it for the 15 miles, I'm definitely getting it for my, 26 point whatever miles that I completed of the 30. And you also get a finishing t-shirt. And yeah, just relax for a while, taking the lake, taking the bridge, the views, and it was ultimately a good time. And lastly, we signed up for a second ride this year, which we have never done before. We normally are like one and done for the year. We train out for a couple months prior to either the Hudson Valley or the 5-borough, and then we're done with riding until next year's season. But this year we opted into doing a second run. It's called the Twin Lights Ride. It's in New Jersey. So definitely don't expect it to be as hilly as the Hudson Valley, although I've never done it before, but it's in Jersey and we'll definitely see. And we're doing another 30 miles there. So we'll definitely keep you folks posted on that after it happens. So far, as of this recording, in the end of August, after the Hudson Valley, I've only trained one more time. I think we did, I want to say 15 miles, a 15 mile or maybe a 20 mile, 15 to 20 miles. So hoping to get at least, 2 more training sessions in prior to the Twin Lights ride, which again is October 1st. But we shall see. We'll keep you guys posted. And that, folks, was my Hudson Valley 2023 tour experience.